بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We have, alhamdulillah, we're actually in a new volume, so we're moving along. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى وحدثنا يحيى بن يحيى قال قرأت على مالك عن ابن شهاب عن عروة بن زبير عن عائشة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يغتسل من إناء هو الفرق من الجنابة. قال حدثنا قتيبة بن سعيد قال حدثنا الليث حا وتحويل الإسناد وحدثنا ابن رمح قال أخبرنا الليث قال حا وتحويل الإسناد وحدثنا قتيبة بن سعيد وبكر بن أبي شيبة وعمر الناقد وزهير بن حرب قالوا حدثنا سفيان كلاهما عن الزهري عن عروة عن عائشة قالت كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يغتسل في القدح وهو الفرق وكنت أغتسل أنا وهو في الإناء الواحد. وفي حديث سفيان من إناء واحد قال قتيبة قال سفيان والفرق 3 آصع. So over here we have 2 ahadith that the first of them is Aisha radiallahu anha saying that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he would make ghusl from a container, from an ina, and then she says huwa al-farq. A farq is a measurement. Oh, you know what? I was supposed to bring something, but I'll bring it inshallah. Min al-janaba. So this was basically an amount of water that he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would personally use when he would make ghusl. The second hadith, that كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يغتسل في القدح. So here, same thing, that she said that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم would make ghusl from a qadh. Qadh, again, same thing, it's like a bucket or like a container or a vessel of water. وهو الفرق, and again, it's just a measurement of water, it's a volume of water. And I would make ghusl at the same time. I would make ghusl with him صلى الله عليه وسلم from that same container. So there are a number of benefits from these ahadith. I think there's a few more. قال وحدثنا عبيد الله بن معاذ العنبري قال حدثنا أبي قال حدثنا شعبة عن أبي بكر بن حفص عن أبي سلمة بن عبد الرحمن قال دخلت على عائشة أنا وأخوها من الرضاع. So over here you have Abu Salama. He said that I went to visit Aisha radiallahu anha, myself and her brother from Rida, meaning that they both had the same milk mothers. فسألها عن غسل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من الجنابة. So he asked her about the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's ghusl when he would come out from janaba. فدعت بإناء قدر الصاع. So over here that she called for a container that was the amount of 1 sa'. 1 sa' is 4 mud. A mud is this much. So a mud is basically a handful. It's a measurement of volume. They didn't have a lot of standards for certain things. I think during the time of the companions, what they did is that they actually used this measurement from the Prophet ﷺ, and that it was called the Mudd al-Nabawi. And that's something that we still have chains of narrations for. And this is actually what I wanted to bring. I forgot it in my office, but I wanted to show you guys. فاغتسلت. So over here, she calls for this water. Then she makes ghusl. وبيننا وبينها ستر. So over here he's saying that between us and her there was a divider. وأفرغت على رأسها 3, and she poured water over her head 3 times. قال وكان أزواج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يأخذن من رؤوسهن حتى يكون كالوفرة. So over here they said that they used to pour this water over their heads until the hair was soaked. قال حدثنا هارون بن سعيد الأيلي, and we'll talk about this inshallah, all of these ahadith. قال حدثنا هارون بن سعيد الأيلي قال حدثنا ابن وهب قال أخبرني مخرمة ابن بكير عن أبيه عن أبي سلمة ابن عبد الرحمن قالت عائشة كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا اغتسل بدأ بيمينه. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she states that whenever the Prophet would start his ghusl, he would start with the right side. فصب عليها من الماء فغسلها, and he would pour it over himself, and then he would wash himself with that. ثم صب الماء, and then he would pour water over himself again. على الأذى الذي بيمينه وغسل عنه بشماله. So over here is that he would take basically the water, and then he would use his other hand to rub the water and to clean himself with it. حتى إذا فرغ من ذلك صب على رأسه, and then when he was done, so he would pour it on the right side, and then someone would pour it on the left side, and then when he was done cleaning himself, then he would take the water and he would just pour all of the water over himself. قالت عائشة. Yeah, so in the first situation, فصب عليهما إذا غسل بدأ بيمينه فصب عليه من الماء فغسل ثم صب الماء على الأذى الذي بيمينه. Yeah, he would use his right hand to pour the water over himself, and he would use his left hand to clean, to rub and to clean himself with. قالت عائشة كنت أغتسل أنا والرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم من إناء واحد ونحن جنوبان. So over here she رضي الله عنها clarifies that me and him صلى الله عليه وسلم used to make ghusl from the same container, and both while we were both in a state of sexual impurity. قال وحدثني محمد بن رافع قال حدثنا شبابة قال حدثنا ليث أن يزيد أن إراك أن حفصة بنت عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر وكانت تحت المنذر ابن الزبير أن عائشة أخبرتها. So over here you have Hafsa, and she was married to Munzir ibn Zubair, where she says, and this isn't the same Hafsa that is the daughter of Abu Bakr, this is his granddaughter. أخبرتها أنها كانت تغتسل هي والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في إناء واحد يسع 3 أمداد. So over here she says that we used to make ghusl from the same container, and the volume of the container was 3 أمداد, right? We said 1 mud, this is a mud, is like a handful. أو قريبا من ذلك, or around that much. So we said that 3 mud is 4 mud is 1 sa', which was mentioned in the previous hadith, and she said over here that is 3. So between that amount, because like I said, it's just a general volume, it's not something that's particularly very specific. قال وحدثنا عبد الله بن مسلمة بن قعنب قال حدثنا أفلح بن حميد عن القاسم بن محمد عن عائشة قالت كنت أغتسل أنا ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من إناء واحد. So Aisha رضي الله عنها, she says that I would make ghusl with the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم from one container. تختلف أيدينا فيه من الجنابة. So she said that when we would both be reaching for water, and sometimes our hands would touch, or we'd be using the same container, so the water would be mixed with both of us taking water from it. قال وحدثنا يحيى بن يحيى قال حدثنا أبو خيثمة عن عاصم الأحول عن معاذ عن عائشة قالت كنت أغتسل أنا ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من إناء بيني وبينه. So she says that I would make ghusl with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and basically she would be here and he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would be here, and the container would be in the middle, and they would both take from that container and they would make ghusl with it. فيبادرني حتى أقول دع لي قالت وهما جنوبان. So she would say to the Messenger of Allah, she said, leave some water for me too. And she would say, so he said, دع لي, like leave some for me. And she said that we were both in a state of janaba, both in a state of sexual impurity. قال وحدثنا قتيبة بن سعيد وأبو بكر بن أبي شيبة جميعا عن أبي عيينة قال قتيبة قال حدثنا سفيان بن عمرو أنا أبي شعثاء عن ابن عباس قال أخبرتني ميمونة أنها كانت تغتسل هي والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في إناء واحد. So over here, this is another wife of the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, Maymuna, where she said the same thing, that me and him صلى الله عليه وسلم used to make ghusl from one container. قال وحدثنا إسحاق بن إبراهيم ومحمد بن حاتم قال إسحاق أخبرنا قال ابن حاتم حدثنا محمد بن بكر قال أخبرنا ابن جريج قال أخبرني عمر بن دينار قال أكبر علمي والذي يخطر على بالي أن أبا الشعثاء أخبرني. So over here he says that from what I recall and what I remember and what immediately comes to mind is that Abu Sha'tha, he is the one that told me and narrated to me this hadith. So he has some doubt. أن Abbas أخبره. So over here he says Abbas رضي الله عنه, he tells him أن رسول الله كان يغتسل بفضل ميمونة, that the Messenger of Allah used to make ghusl with the remaining water from Maymuna رضي الله عنها. قال وحدثنا محمد بن المثنى قال حدثنا معاذ بن هشام قال حدثني أبي عن يحيى ابن أبي كثير قال حدثنا أبو سلمة عن ابن عبد الرحمن أن زينب بنت سلمة حدثته أن سلمة حدثتها قالت كانت هي ورسول الله يغتسلان في إناء واحد من الجنابة. So over here you have Salama saying that I used to make ghusl with the Messenger of Allah from one container. So there are a number of benefits here, and there are a number of points of discussion, inshallah, that I think are important to point out. Number one is what is ghusl, right? I think that's the most important thing, and that's the most important discussion. And that it's basically, do I have to rub the water, or is it enough for me just to pour the water over myself? The majority of scholars, they say that it is recommended that that you rub, but it is not a requirement. Only the Malikiya, they say that it is a requirement that you actually have to rub the water. But it's important that the water reach the entirety of the body. Also, he talks about, all right, how much water can you use? So there's a minimum amount, right, and there's a maximum amount. What is the minimum amount of water? So over here, he used 1 sa', right? So he used 4 handfuls to make ghusl with. Does that make it recommended? Or, because we have other narrations that talk about using even less than that, correct? Right? So we have another narration where we mentioned 3. So in this situation, like, all right, how much water do I need to make ghusl? Is there a specific amount? Did the Prophet ﷺ give a particular measurement in saying that, okay, you need to use at least this much to make ghusl? No, we don't have any narration like that. So that means that whatever amount of water that I need to what? Okay, sure. And what does that mean? Like, so basically, I need to have enough water if I'm making ghusl that it does what? That the water reaches everywhere, right? So if I have enough water that it reaches the entirety of my body, then that is, right? That's not just sufficient. That is the minimal or the minimum amount that I can use. Like, I need to make sure it reaches everywhere. Tayyib. What is the maximum amount?
There's no maximum.
Right, that's it. Right, exactly. So as long as I don't fall into israf, as long as I don't fall into wastefulness, then that is completely reasonable. What does that look like? So for example, if I'm going to take a shower and I turn the shower on, but I don't walk into the shower, am I wasting water? I am wasting water. What if I'm waiting for it to get hot? Use it for something else. Save it?
Yeah.
Put a bucket and save it and use it for something else. Is that considered wasteful? Right, yeah. I mean, because the thing is, like, okay, number one, access to water, I think that's something that's really important. So if I did that in the middle of, like, an African desert, and somebody saw me just waiting for the water, what they're going to look at me and they're going to be like, what? They're going to be like, yo, this guy's crazy. What is he doing, like, wasting this water, right? So I think it's important to understand, number one, the place and the location that we are. Like, but what if I'm in a place where water is in abundance? If I live by a river and water is constantly running.
I mean, we have hadith that says
Hadith is weak. It's okay. But it's fine. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we know that we shouldn't waste, right? That's something that's agreed on. How do I determine what is wasteful? So if for example, I was taking a shower and a normal shower might take 15 minutes, okay? But if I have to shampoo, it might take me 20 minutes or 25 minutes. What if I'm in the shower for 45 minutes or an hour? Huh? I'm just enjoying the water. Right, so over here, I think it's very easy for each of us individually to define what is wasteful, because someone might be like, okay, I'm not feeling well. And sometimes the hot water, it gives a medicinal effect, yes? All right, it helps soothe. And if I'm spending a little bit extra time because I'm not feeling well, am I falling into wastefulness? No, I'm not, right? So it's a very personal gauge. I'm sorry, I'll use the bath. Is that someone might be like, oh, I don't want to, like, sit in my own filth, right? But there are different ways, and the thing is, at the end of the day, it's a very personal decision, right? There's no one here to dictate to someone else, like, oh, this is wasteful, you're being wasteful. I think that conversation, it happens more with, like, parents and children, because the thing is, do children have a good gauge of what is waste? No, right? And that's why we help them, and we help them be like, no, you're wasting water, or this is too much, this is too little. For ourselves, I think we all have a general understanding of what that is. I think most people would start having problems when you start getting into, like, the 40-minute plus shower, right? I think most people would have an issue there. That doesn't mean that that is the actual line. Someone might be like, hey, listen, my hair is like this, and it takes me a long time to shampoo, or whatever the case might be. And some people, it actually does take longer. Some people might be bigger, right? Like, if somebody's bigger, it might take them longer for the soap to reach certain places. Okay, some people might be handicapped, right? And it's not as easy for them, and it takes them longer for certain things. So I think every situation is very much case by case, and it's important for us to understand that. So even though we personally might have an idea, it's like, okay, hey, listen, Even when we're in the shower, we're like, okay, you know what? I've been in here too long, right? Like that's the thought that comes to mind. So what do I do at that point? At that point, I should step out of the shower because I don't want to fall into excess. But that doesn't mean that, okay, I put on a timer, you know what I mean? Like I turn the water and I put on a timer and I get in there and I try to rush. Like, why be anxious, you know, over the shower? Is that what the intention of the ghusl is? Right? That's not the purpose either. That I should have an awareness that I'm not wasting water. I think that's something that's important. But I can't be so stringent and be like, oh man, if I use more than 3 gallons of water, then I'm being completely wasteful. Right? So I think having that balance is something that's really important because like I said, I don't want to enter the shower or take a shower and now it's become a point of anxiety for me, right? Because that can happen. It's like, oh, I don't want to waste. And all of a sudden the shower becomes like this big thing, right? Instead of before it being something like, oh, I'm just going to go take ghusl or I'm going to go cool off. Now it's become like this huge burden mentally. And that's not the purpose, right? That's not the goal of any of these things. So we can testify for a lot of things that we are wasteful of. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can ask us about it. Is it necessary? No, He might not, right? He might forgive us and say, okay, you know, I forgive you for this or I forgive you for that action. So like I said, waste is a very, I think it requires a level of awareness from us. And if I'm aware that I did waste or I did purchase something or I did do something that I'm feeling regret for, you know what I should do? I should seek forgiveness, right? Why am I feeling regret? Right? Because somewhere in my heart, I know or I feel that I've done something wrong. And I think sometimes those feelings can be true, and I think sometimes those feelings can be false, right? I don't think the heart should always be used to guide every single decision that we make, because sometimes we make emotional decisions, and those decisions aren't always the best for us. So what do? I can be like, okay, hey, listen, I'm really unsure about this purchase. I purchased a car, and I paid $50,000 for that car. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know about this. So what do? And I need to talk to the sheikh. Hey sheikh, I bought this car. Did you need it? Well, yeah, I did need a car. Okay. Can you afford it? No, yeah, alhamdulillah. Like affording it wasn't a big problem. Why did you get that car? Well, I liked it. I felt it was a little bit more comfortable. It offered some features and other cars that I don't know. It's like, do you travel sometimes? Yeah. Do you think that it'll help facilitate when you travel? Blah, blah. So with a conversation like that, what's happening in my heart? Right. I'm starting to feel a little bit better and be like, oh, okay, this isn't unjustified, because sometimes people fall in the opposite spectrum. They'll be like, oh no, you know, I'm only going to buy like a $3,000 car with the AC that doesn't work. And that's not healthy either, because you can, if you're in a situation where it's like, oh man, I have to make dua every time I start my car, otherwise the car might not start. That there's a different level of anxiety that's associated with that, right? So I think there's the anxiety of not trusting the things that I'm purchasing because they're such poor value. And sometimes what do? We overshoot and we buy things that we shouldn't be buying. So how do I determine that gauge? The heart helps determine it for sure. But the things that come before that is like, okay, am I fulfilling Allah's rights? Am I giving my sadaqah? Am I giving my zakat? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Does my family feel deprived in any way, right? And not deprived because I'm not giving them money, but deprived because I have the money, I'm not giving it, right? These are two different things. So if it's in my budget and I'm constantly telling them no, and I'm going and I'm buying like a $100,000 car, what's going to happen? Well, I might not be in trouble. Like I might be the father of the home, right? And I'm the sole breadwinner. Like I'm the financial provider. And it's like I tell my kids, like, hey, you know, Dad, I need a new toothbrush. No, keep using the old one until it wears out. Or like, you know, I need a new pair of shoes. It's like, no, 3 years is good. You need to go another fourth year with those shoes. And then I come home with like a $100,000 car. What's going to happen? Right? Not just deprived. There's going to be a sense of resentment, right? That I create. That's a problem, right? That's an issue. Meaning that my children shouldn't feel that I'm grossly unfair with my money. As a father or head of the household, am I going to buy things for myself? Yeah, naturally, right? Like that's something that's normal. I'm going to buy a pair of shoes, I'm going to buy this. But if children start seeing like a huge disparity It's like, okay, well, he only buys stuff for us from the used clothing store, but he's like ordering like really high class clothing. It's not an issue of affordability. Are you guys following? Like, okay, if I can afford these things, that means I can afford them for my kids too. But if that gap is a lot closer in what I'm spending on my children and what I'm spending on myself and what I'm spending on my wife, is there that same sense of resentment? No, right? It's not going to be there because they're like, well, no, if anything, actually, he doesn't really spend on himself and he spends more on us. So when he goes and he purchases that nice car, or when he goes and he purchases like these bigger assets, for them, it's like, oh yeah, that's normal. Like he's not being unfair with us because he's not being unfair with himself. So I think that's something that's important. If I'm giving my sadaqah and my zakat, if my kids and my family and my wife, they're not feeling that I'm being unfair with my money, and now I have money to spend, what can I do? Or what should I do? Right, use it wisely. And it's like, okay, if I can afford something, if I can afford a $80,000 car, for example, and I buy one that's like, you know what, I don't want to go, yeah, I can afford it, and that's probably my upper limit. Let me get something that's like 65. Why? Because I want to feel comfortable in what I'm purchasing. For other people, for somebody who's earning like maybe $30,000, $40,000 a year, they're going to look at me and say, what? Like, this guy is wasting his money, israf, like spending $65,000 on a car, like doesn't even make sense, it's going to depreciate in a year. And we've heard all this. But is that person in a place to make a judgment call on my purchase? No. Right? Again, it's a very personal thing. Yes?
I have a question. For like weddings, when you get like married,
Yeah.
wasteful to spend a lot of money on it? Like,
No. It's wasteful for certain people.
but Islamically?
Islamically, it's fine. Right? Here, is that how I would spend my money? Probably not. Right? So if somebody's like, oh, you know, I'm going to have like a $50,000 wedding or whatever the case might be. It's like, all right, go for it. It's not my preference. It's not where I would spend my money. And someone would be like, oh, it's so wasteful. It's like, okay, well, where did that $50,000 go? It went to servers. It went to the hall rental. It went to the designers. It went to clothing. Where's the money going? It's going to other people. Yes? I mean, are you guys following what I'm saying? It's like, okay, to me, it's like, oh, what a waste. But how many people benefited from that large spending? Right, a lot of people. Like if you had somebody who was like, okay, hey, you know, this is a wedding designer and the wedding planner and the servers and the hall rental and whatever the case might be. It's, again, do I think that's the wisest use of money for a one-day event? No, me personally, I don't. Right, I'm like, no, I would rather actually spend a third of that and put the rest aside and put it like on a down payment on a house or something. Right? That's just me. Other people are like, no, man, you know, it's like you only get married once and I want to have like this big experience and I want to do this, blah, blah. If everybody's in agreement, I'm okay with it. I think it's completely reasonable. It's like the conversation I have with couples is like, okay, is this something that the two of you want? Right? Is it something the two of you want? If one of them's like, no, not really. It's like, okay, hey, listen, can you scale according to what she wants? She doesn't want a big wedding. Can you scale down? Right? You want something big. Okay, cool. She wants something small. Hey, listen, can you go a little bit bigger and can you go a little bit smaller? That's it. Right? That's all it takes. Or it's like both of them, no, we want to do like this huge wedding. It's like, okay, cool. Or the other thing that happens is the couple's like, well, we don't want to do a big wedding, but both the in-laws are like, we want to do a gigantic wedding. That happens too, yes? So in that situation, they're like, well, what do we do? I said, you only need to ask them one question. They're like, what? I was like, who's paying? That's it. That's all that matters. I said, listen, if they are willing to pay, and they say, hey, we're going to do this ginormous wedding and we're going to invite 750 people or whatever it is, and we're going to do this huge wedding, and they're willing to pay, I'm like, yo, enjoy. I said, you can try bargaining with them, because the problem is like in such situations, it's not like, okay, hey, listen, why don't you give us the money and we're going to put it for the, they're like, no, we don't want to give you the money. If you want anything, we're going to pay for the wedding. That's it. That's all we're going to do. It's like, okay, enjoy your wedding. If you want to have a nice wedding, this is a great way to have it. But the problem comes where? The problem comes is like, the in-laws are like, oh, we want to do a huge wedding. Oh, we want to do a huge wedding. And it's like, okay, who's going to pay? Oh, he's going to pay. And he's like, yo, dude, I don't have the money for that. This is where it's a problem, and this is where it's an issue. But other than that, like, no, I don't think it's wasteful. Like I said, I think everybody can have their own individual views around this. It's just a matter of like, okay, well, how do we navigate it? Because you really have four parties when it comes to marriage. Like, I won't say to marriage, to a wedding. Right? You have both in-laws and you have both spouses. Okay, where does everybody stand on this? What does everybody's contribution look like? And if that can be clear, it becomes a lot easier. The problem is like you have a lot of cultural issues. Like the moment the guy's like, nah. Like, exactly, right? The moment the guy's like, no, I'm not doing that. And they're like, oh, come on, it's part of our culture and we have to do this. And I was like, yo, I'm not paying for it. What are you gonna do about it? It just becomes very confrontational at that point. Or the unfortunate thing that more commonly happens is like, I'm actually happy with no's, right? The moment the guy's like, no, and they're like, okay, well, fine, you're not marrying our daughter. It's like, okay, if you want to be petty about it, then I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do, right? Yeah, I'm going to be hurt, right? I will be hurt because I was invested and I didn't want to marry her. But if you guys want to be petty about this, then okay, I guess that's the direction that we're going in, right? That's hard. It's a difficult decision. But you guys know what usually happens? They fall into debt. They take a loan. They're like, oh, I don't know what else to do. I've been talking to this girl for 6 months. I've been talking to her for a year. And now they're saying I have to pay for all these things. And he knows he can't afford those things, but he also doesn't want to say no. You know what the crazy thing about this? When I start paying for things I can't afford, what have I done? I've fallen into israf. So israf, into excess. Like you being wasteful. Why? Because I'm buying things I can't afford. And this is with anything. Like if I'm buying something I can't afford, khalas, that's being wasteful. No doubt. So even if I have that car, right, like I have that $65,000 car, for the guy who's earning $180,000 a year, is that a big deal for him? No, not really. But the guy who's making $50,000, $60,000, is that a big deal for him? And what if you see both of them are driving? Guess what? One fell into israf, one fell into excess, one fell into wastefulness, and the other one, for him, is normal. For him, it's just like buying a Corolla. It's not a big deal. So this is why I say, like, when it comes to excess, when it comes to israf, when it comes to wastefulness, these are very personal issues. They're not public issues. And a lot of times the thing that I see that I find problematic is like, oh, we'll walk into like a wedding, or we'll walk into a house, or somebody will give us a ride in a car. Be like, oh man, this is such a waste of money, or this is such a, like, man, you don't know how this person lives. Like, you don't know this person's lifestyle. Like, who are you to judge? It's like, I know people is like, oh man, this guy, like he wastes so much money, he does this. And I was like, yeah, he's also one of our biggest donors. So it's not like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, he has like a multi-million-dollar house and he has like a Rolls Royce and blah, blah, blah. Like, this is an actual person. May Allah bless him and increase him. It's like, yeah, when the masjid had 0 donations coming in because of COVID, guess who was supporting it? I'm just saying, like, it's so easy to judge. It's so easy to be like, oh, why this or why that? We have to put things on the spectrum. We have to like really put things on a gauge and understand what is going on. It's very easy. And like I said, for us, it's like, oh, 50,000 here and 20,000 there and 100,000 here, and like, oh, he spent this much on this, blah, blah. Okay. He was happy. She was happy. The families are happy. The people who were paid for the services, they were also, right? They're also happy. My question is, who lost? And someone might say, oh, well, there are people starving here and there are people starving there. It's like, okay, he's giving his sadaqah and his zakat, right? He's doing what's obligated on him. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command us to live as paupers? Does he say, it's like, I don't care if you make $1 million, 7 million, I don't care if you're a billionaire, you're only allowed to live off $10,000 a year. Do we have any order like that? We don't. Did the Prophet ﷺ, did he say to like Abu Bakr and Uthman, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he's like, hey, stop being rich? That didn't happen. And even when Umar, like, this was in time of catastrophe. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he did this when things were completely, he was really worried. It was catastrophic. He was like, Quraysh is coming, Militarily, we're not ready. We don't have the funding. We don't have the resources. We don't have the weaponry, nothing. You know what he did? He stood in front of the companions. He's like, listen, guys, we're in a terrible situation. I need money. I need money. We need to arm our guards. Like, we need to get weaponry. We need to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Umar radiallahu anhu, he comes up to him. And remember, this is in a dire time. He says to him, he says, how much have you left for your family? He said, I've left half. Meaning, I cut my wealth in half, my assets, everything, and I've given them to you. This is a huge sacrifice. Think about it. Think like half your house, half your car, half of the money that you're holding on to, you're just like, here, take it. The Prophet ﷺ, you know what he didn't ask for? He didn't ask for the other half, right? When Abu Bakr came to him, what did he do? He said, what did you leave for your family? He said what? He said, Allah and His Messenger. Meaning what? That he gave everything. He's like, take it. Whatever you need, take it. This is everything I have on the table right now. And the reason I'm sharing these examples is because the Prophet, he didn't prohibit anyone from being wealthy. He didn't prohibit anyone from holding on to money. He didn't prohibit any of those things. The only thing he did was he used to encourage to give, right? He used to encourage them to give. And the only thing he obligated was what? Zakat. That's it. Nothing else was an obligation. Our obligation was zakat. So people can argue all they want. People, there's starving people here, and there are programs at this, and the money could have been better used, and blah, blah, blah. Listen, you're not in a position where you can dictate how anybody uses their money. That's not fair. And just because you're passionate about a certain project, or you're passionate about a certain issue, if I'm passionate about Kashmir, for example, and I have Ahmed, he's passionate about Yemen. It happens, yes? Is my cause more important than his? Okay, then how am I here to dictate, like, okay, this is where you should see the money here? Because very easily it'll be like, no, you know what? My happiness is important, and all of these people are getting a salary because of what I'm giving. Like, who's to judge? Right, that's tough.
Sorry, I'll tell
Yeah.
you. But when is Israf applicable in like meher?
Mm-hmm.
What are you wasteful? And
Wasteful?
sorry, just asking for too much.
That's affordability. And at the end of the day, remember, this has to do with honesty. You can ask for $1 million. You can ask for whatever you want. You know what, the guy has a choice to? Like, you have a choice on whatever you'd like to ask, right? And the guy has a choice to what? To say no. And if I'm being honest with you, there are some asks that would be interpersonally considered outrageous. There are certain guys who might actually even be insulted if you ask for like a crazy amount.
But it's my hak to ask.
You can ask for whatever you want, like I said. But you remember, we had spoken about this before, that the Muslim, part of his or her navigation in life is to be socially conscious and socially aware, right? So if every guy coming up to you and be like, hey, listen, all right, I'm trying to get married, you're like, all right, bet, that'll be $3 million. You can ask. What are the chances that, I won't say most, but many men will now try to negotiate? They won't. They'll just walk away. You know why? Why will they walk away? Because the ask is outrageous. They'll be like, yo, this girl is crazy. If,
When you think of, I don't think I understand the concept of meher then, because I'm thinking like, is there just enough so like if something were to happen, you could fall back on it? So
that's one reason, right? The other reason is like, this is a gift for my future wife.
3 million?
Whatever. If a person is happily giving, why does it matter, right? If a person is a multi-billionaire, is $3 million going to matter to him? Examples, and I'm not using these in a positive light in any way, shape, or form, but 2 of the richest women in the world today, you know how they became so wealthy? Because they divorced their husbands. Their husbands are still vastly wealthy, right? So you have, what's his name? Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. Both of them divorced their wives. Just by divorcing their wives automatically shot up to the top richest people in the world. Have they been affected? Not really. They're still ultra wealthy. They still don't care. So at the end of the day, like, does money in certain situations matter to some people? No, it doesn't. But like I said, just kind of being cognizant of what that is. And sometimes, like, the reverse situation holds true too, right? So if I'm sitting down, right, and if you're talking to somebody like a potential, and the conversation of mahar comes up, and he's like, okay, and you're like, well, whatever you're comfortable with, and he's like, yeah, I think I'm comfortable with like $7. But I'm saying if somebody, so now the situation being reversed, how would you feel if someone was like, yeah, I think $7? Huh? Same thing. Remember you were saying the opposite, like, well, why? I can add, okay, he's feeling just as insulted. Will you even want to try to continue negotiations at that point? You might, the first thing out of your mouth will probably be something like, are you joking? Right? And the thing is, like, mahar should not be a point of conflict, right? It should be a point of agreement. Meaning that, all right, hey, listen, I have a general idea of what he does. I have a general idea of how much money he makes, right? And not just that, I also want to show that I'm invested in our marriage. Not that I'm invested in his money. And for him, he's like, okay, I want to show that I'm looking forward to us getting married, and I'm excited, and I want to give her an amount that is substantial, that isn't a burden on me, and that will make her happy. Does that make sense? Right? So that's how you create that balance. And if for either side it's like something outrageous, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, all this other conversation we've been having, and that happens, right? So it's like we've been talking for so long. It's like we agreed on our life goals, like this is what we want to do with children, this is how we imagine home life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she knows what I do, and she knows what and she's coming, she's asking me for $50,000. You know what I mean? After all that conversation, how does that sound to the man? Yeah, not just your investment. It's very insulting. It's like, dude, like we've had all these adult, mature conversations, and now when it comes to money, you're like, are you making fun of me? Are you like belittling me right now? Like you know what it is that I do, and we had a conversation about buying a home and stuff like that, and it's like, am I buying a home or am I buying you? Yeah. So I can tell you how much women are okay with, in general, coming and marrying it's about $5,000. Yeah. So I've done at Al-Hijrah maybe like, I want to say like around 120 weddings, 150 weddings or so. Average is about average is about $5,000. And this is, sometimes it's me like saying, the guy will be like, 100 or 500, 1,000. I'll be like, no, 5,000. This is me. It's even the girl. She's like, but I was like, no, you shut up. Like 5,000. I think that's that. I was like, 5,000. I think is fair. Most guys are okay with it. You know why? Because 5,000, it's not a very small amount, and it's not an outrageous ask, because it's something that, okay, you know what? You want to pay it over time? No problem. But at least it's something that she'll have in her hand. And whatever she wants to use it for, whatever she wants to buy, like that's her right. So, like I said, that's what I would say is like the median in most marriages. And like I said, most women are okay with it. I've done a number of workshops where I asked. So I said, okay, what is one of the biggest barriers to marriage? And one of the questions was like, really high mahar. So I asked the young women that were there, I said, okay, hey, listen, like, would you guys be surprised to hear that the median mahar for the marriages I've performed here has been about $5,000? How many of you have a problem with that? Nobody raised their hand. They're like, we would hope it's more, right? And there's nothing wrong, like I said, for wanting more, but it wasn't insulting, right? It wasn't insulting to either side. And with inflation, maybe next year it'll go up to like 6, right? You know what I mean? Like, but at the end of the day, it's like, it has to be something reasonable, right? Something that's agreeable. And I only share that number, not because I think everybody should marry at that amount, but I think that everybody should consider in looking into like what it is like when it comes to the marriage. Because there are many times having an extremely high mahar is overcompensating for the potential problems that are actually going to be in that relationship. Like, there are certain relationships where people will come and they're like, oh, we want to get married. It's like, and they're talking about like a $50,000 mahar and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this marriage isn't going to work. Like, why are you agreeing to this? And many times, in many cultures, you know why they keep a high mahar? Because they think it's going to deter a divorce. They're like, oh, we want to do a muakhar, we want to do a delayed mahar of $50,000, $100,000. And the family is like, yeah, you know, he won't have to pay. I was like, bro, it's a mahar. Like, she's due that money. That's her right. I was like, I don't know how you guys think mahar works, but mahar is her right. And that's a debt that's going to be on his neck that he's going to have to pay her. And they're like, oh, no, that's only in the case of divorce and blah, blah. I was like, yeah, you clearly have no idea how mahar works. And some of them, I've heard this, is like, yeah, you know, it prevents divorce. I was like, no. I said, listen, the richest men in the world, they didn't care that they were going to lose half their wealth. They just didn't want the headache anymore. Or maybe she was tired of him, or whatever the case might be. But you know what didn't stop them from getting divorced? The money. Money doesn't prevent that. Like, you want to prevent the divorce? Okay, there has to be respect. There has to be conversation. There has to be motivation to stay married, right? Like, these are the necessary qualities of a marriage to remain intact. And someone might say, oh, well, what about love? No, love's like page 3. Because you can love someone who is actually hurtful toward you. You can love someone who is actually very toxic. That doesn't mean that this is going to make a good spouse. But someone who respects me, someone who's willing to take care of me, someone who's affectionate, right? Like, these are the things that we look for in marriage. Love, I think love is a very natural thing. Sometimes you can love more and you can love less. But the marriage is actually strained. It's like, okay, Tayyib, do I still want to be married to her even though I don't love her as much now? Because it happens. Because we fluctuate, like, we're human beings. Our hearts go up and down. And sometimes we love more and sometimes we love less. During those times when I love less, do I still want to stay married? People have asked for like Hajj, people have asked for like cars, people have asked for like, you know, I mean, there's different things you can ask for. I like putting a dollar amount because it's something that's very tangible. It's very clear. I had a couple that are like, oh, yeah, you know, he's gonna take me on Umrah. I was like, that's cute. You know what I mean? Like, I respect it. But what package? Flying out from where? Is there an expectation for hotels? What type of rooms are you guys going to be staying in, right? I said all of those have a huge effect. I was like, do you want a premium package, Umrah? Or is it okay if he's like, okay, hey, listen, we might have to make it to Kaf and sleep in the haram. It's an Umrah, yes or no? It's like, okay, are you okay with the Umrah that you land, 3 hours later you make your Umrah, you get back on the plane, you come back? That's an Umrah. Yes? What I did with that couple was because like she was like really insistent on the Umrah. I said, okay, Umrah, or what is equivalent to X amount? No, Umrahs? Yeah. No, Umrahs, alhamdulillah, you can still get for that amount, man. But
Can you share your money? Like, can I like ask for like 5K and then be like, let's go on a world tour?
yeah, sure. But again, what constitutes a world tour? He might take you like on Singapore Airlines, so that's halfway around the world, right? And then then he takes you on another flight. It's like, hey, we went around the world.
For both of us?
Yeah. You can gift your money, right? There's nothing wrong with that. However you use your money is fine. Because at the end of the day, remember, subhanAllah, money actually only becomes ours the moment that we spend it. Because if I didn't spend it and I die, is that did I benefit from the money? No. But that doesn't mean that we should waste it, right? It's like, so no, the Sheikh said we have to spend all our money. That's the only one that's really ours. They're like, just start blowing your money. That's not what we want either.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it that money? Okay, in my culture, we gave gold, and I remember my dad thanking my mom many times. Every time like she sells some of the gold, he gave.
Uh-huh.
This one we gave to my mom.
Yeah.
And
through a lot of like difficult times. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's fine.
But is it
It's
that's
fine.
what you are talking about now, or
No, no. So this is just gifting. You know what I mean? Like gifting that money. So for example, it's like okay, you get a $10,000 mahar, and your husband's like, hey, listen, I'm going to buy a house, and he's taking care of all the things, and he's getting the paperwork done, and you're like, hey, listen, put another 10,000 down.
Can you give it up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So you give him that, and it's like, okay, hey, listen, but put it toward the house. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like gifting your mahar, I think is completely reasonable. It's fine. There's no issue with that. For giving the mahar, there's some khilaf on, right? Can a woman forgive her husband for the mahar? The Hanbalis, we say no, she can't. Like her mahar is hers. She can't forgive him for it, and he's always accountable for that. I lean toward that. I think it can become an issue of a very emotional decision. And in order to protect her from that emotional decision, she should be able to. Now, if she chooses to spend on him, that's different, right? Because she's still using that money actively. Yep. So the first issue was the issue of how much water to use, the minimum, and then the maximum. And then the next issue is it permissible for a man and woman to bathe together? And this is something that is jaiz bi ijma'. So all Muslim scholars have said that this is something that's permissible and it is fine. The issue that there is a difference of opinion on is it okay for a man to use the used water of a woman to make ghusl? So, for example, if you're in a bath basin, right? If you're both standing in a basin and you're using that water to clean yourself, can I go down into that basin and use that same water to clean myself? This is where you're going to have a difference of opinion. So you have some scholars, they say that is la yujuz, that it is not permissible. It is not permissible for a man to use the used water of a woman to make his ghusl. You have some scholars, they say that is makruh, that is something that is disliked. Yeah.
I mean, even for the water that he's using, he cannot reuse it because it's supposedly
Yeah,
dirty.
because it's been contaminated.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and that's where the question comes now. The issue of why it's different for men and women, it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that a woman does menstruate, and that's why there's a difference on why they deal with a woman's water with more. They find it more challenging in dealing with women's leftover water than they do with a man's. That's why it's more of an issue. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a big deal. Like water, as long as the water's clean, it's clean. And there's nothing to prove that the used water becomes najis. You can say that it's disliked because, huh? I'm sorry?
So the Prophet ﷺ was using the same water?
So the problem is that we used, there's one hadith, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يغتسل بفضل ميمونة, that he used her leftover water, that she took a bath.
Yeah, but leftover.
Yeah.
Leftover clean water. So she used the
No,
water.
no. I'm using the wrong term. Used water.
because back then they had issues.
Right, there's a limit in water, right? But the thing is,
All the time when
even if you have limited water, for example, if someone was like, okay, hey, listen, we have limited water, but this water, somebody like a kid peed in it. If a child urinated in that water, can I use it? Even though I only have a little bit of water? No, I can't. Right? It's not pure. And it's the same thing here. Like either the water is pure or not. Like Islamically, either you only have two choices. Either the water is pure or it's not pure. And if it's impure, I can't use it. If it's pure, it depends on the type of water. Meaning, so for example, tea. Tea is pure. Yes? Can I use it for wudu or ghusl? No, I can't. No, you can't. I don't want you guys. I don't want you guys going home making wudu with tea.
you don't have the choice to
Yeah.
say that's your only
No.
source of liquid.
No. But so if I have tea water, I can't. You know what I do in that situation. So if I'm traveling, I have no water, right? The only thing I have is the tea. I do tayammum, right? Remember, either the water can be used for wudu or not. And if I can't use it for wudu, what do? I do tayammum. That's it. That's the solution. It's not like, oh, okay, well, all I have is this bottle of Coca-Cola. Let me make ghusl with the Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is pure. It's pure. Would you agree? It's pure. It's clean, right? In that way, it's fine. But it doesn't mean that I can use it for wudu. I can't use it for ghusl. I can only use water. Now, if the water is tainted a little bit, if it's changed a little bit, there's a level of tolerance for that change. And over here, this is where the difference of opinion is. Because technically, I could make wudu and I can make all these things. And if I have leftover water, sometimes the water can be a little bit murky, but does that now take it out of the mahiyya to, how am I going to translate? Of it actually being defined as water. So over here, that's why you have this difference of opinion. And that's why there's khilaf around this issue. Like I said, I would say that it's fair to say that it's disliked and it should be avoided, right? Like we shouldn't actively try to use used water if we have a choice. But if you don't have a choice and the water's there, or out of convenience, I think it's fine to use that. Oh, and there's another hadith that he mentions. On nahi. So over here is a hadith, Hakam ibn Amr al-Ghafari, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى أن يتوضأ الرجل بفضل طهور المرأة. So you have a very clear hadith on this. I think the hadith is weak though. يعني فيما أذكر. And even if it's Sahih, if I have a hadith where the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says over here you have Hakam. He says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forbade us from making wudu, from a man making wudu with the leftover water or the used water of a woman. And let's say this hadith is sound. What hukm or what ruling can I take from this hadith? No problem. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade us, or naha, right? He forbade us from making wudu, or from a man making wudu with the used water of a woman. So the water that she used to make wudu, she left it, right? It gathered, and now he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is saying that he forbade, or I won't say, but he forbade using that water. This is wudu. So if it's wudu, ghusl awla, right? Yeah, so over here, but the scholars, they still say it's makruh, it's disliked. Nobody said it's haram. But what do I do with this hadith? So one of the reasons here is that this is not a prophetic statement. Okay? So anytime, and this is something in general, if you come across a hadith where you have a companion who says that the Prophet forbade us from XYZ, it's very different than the Prophet ﷺ said you can't do da-da-da-da. Do you guys understand the difference? So because the word nahi, the word forbade or prevent or not to, all of these can be understood in a spectrum, right? What the highest end of the spectrum is what? That it is forbidden, right? And the lowest end of the spectrum that it is disliked. So if he said that we shouldn't, like one of the ways that you can understand it is like he sallallahu alaihi wasallam prevented us from, or he what's the lighter form of prohibited? He discouraged. Like so a good way to translate it is like he discourages us. I just tongue-tied myself. He discouraged us from making wudu from with the used water of a woman. Makes sense? Huh? Wudu water. So the question is contaminated, right? If I make wudu and I have a basin to catch the water that I used wudu with, can someone else come and make wudu now? It's contaminated, but that's the question. Is it tahir or not? And that's what this hadith is discussing, and that's what it's talking about. Okay, if I have this used water, can I use it again or not? A lot of scholars will say don't. Yeah, yeah,
Show that he's done, he acted
yeah,
in a different way.
yes. And that's another thing. If you have a hadith to show that he acted in a different way, and then you have something like this, you have to contextualize it. And the easiest way to contextualize something like this is like, okay, no, it's not a prophetic statement. It's something that they took from, it's something they understood from him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But we'll stop here, inshallah, and we'll start the tazkiyah class shortly. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu.